Away from that, there are strong indications that President Bola Tinubu may scrap the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation as part of a major cabinet rejig. The exercise could also see some portfolios split and others merged into a single entity, while some ministers would be relieved of their duties. Tinubu has been facing increasing pressure from within and outside his party, the All Progressives Congress, to sack underperforming ministers in his cabinet. Although the president had warned against underperformance about 10 months ago, the cabinet had remained largely intact, save for the suspension of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, and that's Dr. Betta Edu. And now joining us to discuss this as an economist is an economist and public affairs analyst, Aliyu Ilias. Aliyu, many thanks for doing this with us. We appreciate you for coming on. We're pressed for time, so let's get started. This is not the first time we'll be hearing of agencies merging. The Stephen Orosaya report readily comes to mind when you think about this, which now seems to have been forgotten again after so much noise some months ago when the president said that, they were going to take this the recommendations of the report into consideration and move on it. But what are your thoughts on this so far?
Right. After 12 years, because I recall it was 2012 that I came up with that report. And during that period, we have the number of agencies that we have during that period was at around 300. And now we have over 1,000 agencies. And, and now we are talking about scrapping the agency. So scrapping the some of the agency might look like a tall order. However, let's give President Bola Tinubu that opportunity. Let's trust him that he's going to do something. But for me, I think it's late now to say we want to go back from 300 to 250. Now we have about 1,000. So are we coming down to 800? Are we merging MDAs? But if you ask me, I think for the challenge that we have now, it's critical we merge agencies together because some agencies have likely or what it look as if they are doing the same thing, double job. I think by so doing that will help. So it's a good one if we merge some agencies.
All right. Now, there's a potential scrapping of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. What do you believe are the key factors driving this potential scrap altogether of the ministry? What do you think it could be? Because now, first of all, there was a suspension of the minister of that ministry. But what are your thoughts on what could possibly be the reason?
Right. I think it would be a very, very bad thing. For me, I recall in my thesis, I did research on poverty reduction in Nigeria, and one of our recommendations is like Alleviation programs, and that's what actually President Muhammadu Buhari did, because he actually institutionalized. Because you recall during Obasanjo it was called NAPEP, during Yaradua wealth creation, during Jonathan it was you win, and during President Muhammadu Buhari it was NSIP, but he was able to institutionalize poverty reduction program. So I think it is wrong to really, if you want to scrap any ministry, should it be humanitarian and disasters management ministry? Should have been other ministry, not this one, because this one is actually what we need to institutionalize. Because you recall, we will continue to have poverty reduction program. So where is the agency that is going to supervise, anchor it and do a lot of things? So I think it's important we retain humanitarian affairs and also maybe now scrap some other agencies. It is important that we maintain this humanitarian.
And speaking of just how important it is, we hear of a possible cabinet reshuffle. How might the proposed cabinet reshuffle impact the effectiveness of governance and, most importantly, public service delivery in Nigeria?
Right. If you ask me, I will even say it's coming a little bit late, because I was expecting after the appraisal, 1 year appraisal of those ministers, by now we shall have that reshuffle. It has a lot of benefits. One, if there is a particular ministry or agency that is not performing well, the best let that person go and let someone that will perform better comes. And by the time you do it for 2-3 persons, others will sit well and make sure they perform their civic duty. You recall that you also have an essay on public administration. Is it Aisha? What have you done? I was thinking of that. So I was thinking they are going to appraise them, the KPI, key performance indicator, to make sure that they actually do what they're supposed to do. I think we are at that level in Nigeria whereby if you don't perform, you need to go within a year. So it's a good one in the right direction.
Now, okay, so besides just reshuffling, right, one has to ask the question, is reshuffle then the answer? How can the government best address the concerns of citizens, Nigerians, when it comes to regarding underperformance, among ministers? Because you might reshuffle and you might take, for example, the Minister for Women Affairs to say, I don't know, one other ministry, and then they don't perform or they still give the same performance. I mean, what informs this type of decision and what's the best way to address it?
Right. Well, in as much as we believe the technocrats are those directors that work in that agencies, but the thing is, the leadership is very, very key. I can mention some ministry for you that you could hear them, they are doing something because of the person there. It's not about being that person studying what is evil manning. No, it's about that person having have a team lead spirit and be able to governate and garner our interest to make sure we achieve our aim. So I think if anyone is not providing services as expected, it's enough to let that person go. So I think it will actually bring us more plans. And ask if it will affect the citizenry. Policy direction is very, very key in the life of Nigerian citizens. So if you have the right policy direction, I think we'll have a better way to go. So I think it's a good one. It's a welcome idea. Unlike President Bola, Muhammadu Buhari, for good 8 years never have a major reshuffle, never bring anybody out, change anybody because of low performance. And we could see most of them, the performance was abysmal, and there's nothing we can do. So I think if he can do it early now, it will help him to really perform.
All right. Well, many thanks for doing this with us, Aliyu. Appreciate you for coming. Aliyu Ilias there. He is a political affairs analyst and he joined us just to discuss more on a possible reshuffle and the scrapping of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. Once again, many thanks.